Hey folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. If you're out there, you feel free to comment in live time. It is Sunday morning, or actually, it's Monday morning. It's formerly Sunday night, just crossed into midnight. And if you're out there, if you have any comments on the Sting's retirement show, retirement match, him and Darby Allin, as you know, retained the AEW tag team titles. Let me know if you can hear me too. If you can do me a favor. It looks like my wires are a little messed up here. But let me know if you can hear me, guys, just because I want to make sure that I'm being heard. If you can't be heard, why bother speaking, right? So this was a good show. I mean, it felt like a lot of AEW shows, not a lot of fluff, not a lot of vignettes, some vignettes, but just really a lot of action. I thought the show was good. Um, I thought it was fun. I thought the Sting Darby match going last was the correct call. We've seen famously in the past the Rock Hulk Hogan match at WrestleMania 18 did not go last. Actually, didn't even go second to last. There was the women's title match and then Triple H and Jericho. So we've learned, or at least Tony Khan has learned, or whoever's in charge has learned, that you put the emotional match last, and that's what they did. And so I think that was a good move. The glass, I'm not sure if they needed all that glass, but I mean, it definitely added something. What do you think? Um, I thought it was fine. I mean, not to be a worry wart, but this Darby Allen guy, hopefully, he's not going to be having long term staph infections from this stuff. Like I said, folks, let me know if you can hear me okay. If anyone wants to just comment that the audio is good, that would make me feel better because I'd hate to be standing here like a moron or sitting here like a moron talking with no audio. Pretty loaded show. I'm trying to see if it was. I thought some other good matches with the tag team match. The FTR against Moxley and Claudio was really good, as you'd expect from those four guys. You had the Revolution Zero Hour, the Switchblade, and the Jay White and the Guns. That match I actually didn't see. I was actually setting things up, so I'm not even sure what happened with that one. Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. A lot of stuff. Bang Bang Scissor Gang defeats Jarrett, Lethal, Singh, Private Party, and Mac. I did not see that one. The Zero Hour. I wish I had seen this one. Julia Hart and Sky Blue against Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale. Nightingale and Statlander get the victory. I didn't see that one either, so I'm going to have to go back and watch these matches. I'm not sure what happened. I do know what was happening. I was setting up the whole pay per view experience. We get started with Christian Cage and Daniel Garcia. I thought that was a decent match. I think Christian Cage has been doing some great stuff. Christian Cage, as this TNT champion, I mean, we saw it a few months ago when he main evented against, it was Darby Allin, I believe. He main evented the pay per view, and wasn't that when good old Edge or Adam Copeland came out? And so Christian Cage can really work any match on the show. So on this particular show, he was up first and I thought it was a good match. I do like the whole thing where he's dating Nick Wayne's mom. I think that's fun. So a decent match, and so on and so forth. The Continental Crown Championship match was next. Interesting to see our buddy there, Brian Danielson, another guy who can be anywhere on the card. I mean, I think Brian Danielson, to me, is a main event player, even at this point. I guess we'll be seeing pretty soon because I think Brian Danielson said at some point that he's going to be retiring sooner than later. So I guess we'll be having one of these Brian Danielson retirement shows before we know it. But until then, he's still got matches in him. And I thought this match was quite good. I think if anyone's going to get a great match out of somebody like Eddie Kingston, it'll be Brian Danielson. And this might have been the best singles match of the night, at least. The BleacherReport.com gives it an A minus. I'd probably be up there with that. I thought it was really strong. What did you think? Like I said, folks, let me know if the audio is coming through. I don't want to harp on it too much. Check, check, check. It seems like it is. Yeah. All right. So let's get back to our things here. International Championship match: Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong. So this seemed like we did have a new champion in this one. Roderick Strong, somebody noted that he had shaved his mustache. One of the people I was watching this show with. I had a good group of people I was watching this show with. Thanks to my friend John there in Connecticut. Well, actually, I believe he's in Pennsylvania now for setting this thing up. But it was good. It was a good match. I enjoyed it. O'Reilly wins the title. Or Kyle O'Reilly shows up to help celebrate with Roderick Strong. Looks like they've reformed their, friendship and all that good stuff. Orange Cassidy took a really interesting power bomb. Roderick had him on the top rope and kind of like power bombed him on the top turnbuckles. We were kind of trying to figure out, was that something they meant to do or was that an accident? To me, it looked like he meant to do it, and it looked like just Orange Cassidy is willing to take those risks. So Orange Cassidy, like a Darby Allin, willing to take these risks and stuff like this. The next match, like I said, probably my personal favorite match as far as like an actual old school traditional wrestling match. Moxie and Claudio against the FTR. I don't think there's any titles on the line in this thing, but this was really a great match. Bleacher Report gives it an A. I also give it an A. I thought it was great. Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli win the match. A lot of action, a lot of good sound psychology. We did hear something about Cash Wheeler in real life having a arrest situation a while ago. He was arrested. I believe he had a firearm. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. I don't know if that's that situation, why he might have dropped this match. I mean, it seems like that's kind of passed over. People aren't really talking about it anymore. By the way, folks, if you're on Facebook or Twitter, you have to go over to the YouTube link to actually make your comment seen. If you're commenting and you're upset that I'm not seeing your comment, it's probably because I'm not seeing it. So you've got to go to the actual YouTube link to comment, by the way. Let's see. AEW Women's World Championship match. This was a fun one. Deonna Purrazzo against Timeless Toni Storm. They've been doing some interesting things with the graphics. The black and white for Toni. Deonna in full color, of course. Deonna basically called out she wanted the old Toni Storm. They had this whole thing with their matching tattoos. All these kind of storylines they put into it. Mariah May actually comes out in the old Toni Storm outfit, kind of as a fake out thing, which was fine, although we did kind of see that later on in the Sting match. But I think enough time passed between those two that it didn't really matter. Toni Storm retains the title. Sometimes it's good to have on a pay-per-view just a champion overcomes a solid challenger. I think we saw that coming up with Samoa Joe. It's sometimes, you don't have to book a title change every single time. In the early days of wrestling pay-per-views, back when it was NWA and WWF, a lot of times if they had a title match, you pretty much knew that the title was going to change hands because they had less pay-per-views back then. And if you were going to book a title match, a lot of times the titles did change hands on pay-per-view. These days, there's so many pay-per-views, there's so many titles. A lot of times, it seems like the better move is just to have a champion retain the title in a title defense on pay-per-view to legitimize the champion. And the other thing is, if you're a champion and you don't defeat anybody, what value does your title reign have? Finally, we got my buddy Jimmy up here. Jimmy, by the way, man, if you want, I don't know if you are available right now. I know that Jimmy is a hardworking guy who helps citizens in the medical industry, so I appreciate that, buddy. But if you happen to be awake and you want to set up, I'd be glad to have you come into the mix here. So I will send you the invitation. If you can take it, jump in, do your outdoor setup with your headset. If not, that's okay. I know you got to work a lot of times early, but I always like having Jimmy. Jimmy and I are overdue to do a football thing, which Jimmy's kind of in suspense because I was ready to do it 2 months ago. And then when we delayed, I delayed. So Jimmy Faluca says, I felt the show from top to bottom was solid. Outside of the ladies match, I enjoyed all of the matches. Now, I'm assuming you're talking about the title match, the women's title match I just mentioned, Toni Storm. Yeah, that's what I figured, buddy. Well, don't worry about it, Jimmy, because I know, like I said, Jimmy's a hardworking guy and he's got to wake up early. I am really strange, Jimmy. I was actually up until 8 o'clock in the morning yesterday, and then I slept till 1:45 today. So my clock is totally off. If you're wondering what this is one of my novels that I'm actually tweaking. So yes, I know sleep is just an interesting thing for me, but I am looking forward to our football thing. As far as the women's match, what didn't you like about it? I mean, I thought it was fine. I mean, I was just saying that sometimes you need to have a strong, successful title defense from any champion needs to defend their title successfully over some type of challenger. Just to keep the title reign, to make it legitimate for when they do pass that title on. I think that's what we had with Samoa Joe. Jimmy says, I felt that match just didn't flow well. Good point. I could be totally wrong, but I just didn't get into it. The entrance with Tony was brilliant, though. Yeah, this is one of the things. One of the people I was watching this with, Dr. Mike, was pointing out, Tony Storm kind of wearing this very retro outfit. I mean, she's been doing this for months now, but I mean, it seems like she's just going deeper and deeper into this old time Mae Young type of outfit. Mildred Burke, even I believe there's a Mildred Burke movie coming out pretty soon, but she even had the knee pads that looked more like Band-Aids. Maybe it's more me than them. I just didn't get into the match. And Tony's character is real good. Well, I think the thing with Tony Storm is she's also wrestling in a style that's not to say antiquated, but it's very, very, very old school, to the point where it's, beyond anything that we've seen. It's not 1980s Arn Anderson or 1970s Greg Valentine. It's even before that. You know what I mean? It's like the very basic thing. And I give Tony Storm a lot of credit. I mean, with all the simps out there, she could have just relied on being a sexy, pretty woman for her whole career. But she got into AEW, where there's a lot of sexy, pretty women, and she decided to do something different. And she's toned back on the sexuality. I mean, she's not just another pinup blonde wrestling lady. She's got a character. And I was saying to the people that I was watching this thing with, when you have a good wrestler and you add a good character, like your favorite The Undertaker, like your favorite Bray Wyatt, and in this case, Tony Storm. Now, did this match in particular fall short? Perhaps. I mean, it didn't have a lot of false counts. It didn't have a lot of false falls. It didn't have a big swerve of an angle, so to speak. But I thought it was good. I mean, was it the best match on the show? No. But I thought that the fact that they did have a storyline with them being former friends and so on and so forth, I thought it was good. Tony, with how attractive she is, could easily be just another attractive body on the roster. Instead, she went in the opposite direction. Why fit in when you can stand out? Exactly. Well put. The other thing that, not that you were saying this, Jimmy, but just the fact that we're kind of analyzing this one match, when I started watching wrestling about 10 years ago with a friend of mine now, my friend was very much into just looking up individual matches. Like, hey, I'm going to watch this Sting Vader match, or I'm going to watch this Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express match, or something like that. And I was trying to get into my buddy's mind a little bit and suggest, you really got to watch a whole card. Like for me, a wrestling show it's like an album, like a whole entire wrestling card. I did go see the NXT show last night, live show. I've got some photographs I can share. But my point is, when you think of an album back in the 70s or probably the 60s even, kids would listen to an entire album, Pink Floyd, The Wall, or the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys. That's different than listening to a 45 of just a single, or just turning on the radio and hearing what's there, or whatever, downloading a song, right? To me, if you're just going to judge a match by match thing, it's not the full picture, because a wrestling card is not, you don't go to a wrestling show and just watch one match and then leave and come back a week later and watch another match. You sit there for 8, 9, 10 matches. So to me, for a wrestling card to be effective, you want some matches that are purposely not the best match on the show. Because if every match is trying to be the best match on the show, I think AEW has made that mistake in the past. I think their earliest, couple of pay-per-views, everybody was just kind of doing their own thing. And I don't know if it wasn't Tony Khan or whoever else, just didn't put like a cohesive vision together. That's one thing that Paul Heyman likes to brag about. He thinks he did a very good job with putting together ECW shows. He probably did. Let's see. I think this is still Jimmy. Sting and Vader had a trilogy in 92, 93 that still to this day are amazing. They mesh well together. Well, buddy, I think that I was there for the final part of that trilogy. Let me see if I can think of what you're thinking of, buddy. I think I do. The Great American Bash, 92, when Sting defeated Vader. Sting would then trade the title with Ron Simmons. I was there in attendance when Ron Simmons got the title over Vader just 2.5 weeks later in Baltimore, August 2nd, 1992. Unfortunately, I missed the December, I think it was December 27th or December 30th when Vader got the title back from Simmons in Baltimore. Could have gone to that show, didn't go to it for stupid reasons. Then I think you're actually thinking of before that, Starrcade 92, the King of Cable tournament finals, Sting and Vader. Which I believe Sting did win that one. And then I think moving ahead to February of 93, I was there for that one. So that was the one of the trilogy, if this is what you're thinking of. Super Brawl 3. Ole Anderson actually got me a free ticket. The Mass Wrestling Fan is overdue to do his Ole Anderson tribute. Mass Wrestling Fan has been in a state of depression because Ole Anderson passed away and Virgil. Mostly because of Ole, but a little bit because of Virgil. But when the Mass Wrestling Fan comes out of his deep depression, he is going to do a hell of a Ole Anderson tribute. But yeah, I think I was there for the Super Brawl 3, the White Castle of Fear, the strap match. Yes, Ole Anderson, rest in peace. I was telling people tonight, Ole Anderson and Bret Hart are like the best, grumpy wrestler, angry wrestler shoot interview guys. R.I.P. to Virgil. Mike Jones, Soul Man Mike Jones. Interesting career. I mean, he was basically what they call a heater. He was a bodyguard. Him and DiBiase together were magic. I think everything that came after that, him with the NWO, him with the West Texas Rednecks. I mean, he always did well, but it was really him and DiBiase that set the foundation for this guy's whole career. And in recent years, we've had the Lonely Virgil hashtag and so forth, but I'm sure that, Virgil wasn't lonely. Yes, that was the 3 matches, man. I was there for the third one, the strap match, and that was a hell of a good time. Barry Windham beat the Great Muta on that show for the NWA title, NWA World title, I should say. Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita. Sorry, I slaughtered this guy's name. Takeshita and Ospreay. Yeah, DiBiase was awesome. Ted DiBiase. Will Ospreay. This was a good match. I mean, Bleacher's given it an A+. I'll be honest. I was kind of fooling around with my pay-per-view situation here. I was kind of mixing up my mojos as far as, what to watch the show on and so forth. I didn't give this match a full embrace. Not because I didn't want to, just because of logistics. And unfortunately for me, I did see, the big moves. I did see Ospreay get the victory. Bleacher Report's giving this an A+. What I didn't like about this match, Kyle Fletcher comes in, Ring of Honor World TV Champion. And Jimmy, this is one of the reasons why I haven't been watching so much AEW. Too many goddamn titles, everybody. I mean, it makes it hard for me to take it seriously or any promotion seriously. And WWE NXT has the same problem. Although they did merge their NXT women's tag team title with their main roster women's title, tag team title, when everyone's a champion, no one's a champion. And it's hard for me to really give a shit about the Ring of Honor World TV Champion when Ring of Honor does not have a TV show. They don't have a TV show. Where's the Ring of Honor television show in 2024? It does not exist. So why do they need a world television champion if they don't have a television show? They absolutely do have too many titles because everyone has a title. It's on special to be a champion. And the way that I phrase that same sentiment, buddy, is if everyone is a champion, no one is a champion. You know what I mean? Or if everybody is a champion, nobody is the champion. See, you take the A comes first and then the the. So if everybody is a champion, nobody is the champion. And that, was what we saw here. I mean, Kyle Fletcher, no offense, but I mean, this whole thing with the Don Callis family, Don Callis is really good on the microphone, but when you have the two guys fighting each other, I'm not really sure what the point is. Thanks, Jimmy. I appreciate that, buddy. And thanks again, man. And like I said, Jimmy and I are going to I might even have to send Jimmy something in the mail to help with this presentation, because I've actually been putting together a presentation that's really going to be interesting. Not even about wrestling, about football. AEW World Championship match, Swerve versus Samoa Joe versus Hangman Page. This is an interesting storyline. It's basically like, without even doing anything, the fans have just taken a liking to Swerve Strickland. Him and Hangman Adam Page had that bizarre Texas death match a couple of pay-per-views ago. The blood drippings from Swerve into the mouth of Hangman. Jimmy was a big fan of this match. I like this match too. It reminded me a couple of years ago, I think it was 2021, when I went to the AEW pay-per-view in Daly's Place in Jacksonville. Kenny Omega defended the title against Orange Cassidy and Pac, believe it or not. Like, that was a world title match on a pay-per-view, and that match was not the main event. It was the Stadium Stampede was the main event. This was a showcase match for Swerve. He will be a champion, world champion, or he will be the world champion. Now, are you saying that he will be the AEW world champion? Because, by the way that you just wrote the sentence, buddy, we could say, are you saying he's going to be the Ring of Honor world champion? But if he stays in AEW, it does seem like there's a lot of momentum for Swerve, and I think they could do a thing where Swerve finally gets that AEW world title, and then he's got to contend with Hangman Page. Now, the interesting part of this match for me was the person that was not there tonight, hasn't been there in a while, good old MJF. What's going on with MJF? We know that he had an injury, but I mean, that was back in December 30th, the last time we saw him. And what's today? March 3rd was this show. Today's March 4th. So where is MJF? And Samoa Joe is one of my personal time favorites. I love the guy. It is good to see him with the world title. If you dig into this channel, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan, you can hear a really interesting story of me dealing with Samoa Joe and Homicide, and why I'm thankful for those guys for not beating the shit out of me. Christopher Daniels was involved in that. Just look up on this channel, One Pro Wrestling and Sports Fan YouTube channel, my story with Samoa Joe and Homicide. It's good for a chuckle. So you're thinking that basically Swerve Strickland's going to get this title. I remember Swerve being in MLW, 6 or 7 years ago. That's when MLW was just this random weird thing. It's still kind of a random weird thing. But if you look at it, I mean, they've had MJF, they've had Swerve Strickland, they've had the Von Erichs come out of MLW. MLW was the company that brought Tony Schiavone back to wrestling. So they've done something right, but Swerve was their champion. Then he went to NXT and WWE and all that good stuff. And here he is in AEW. The fans are really into Swerve. I may not be as into Swerve as other people, but I do feel that this Adam Page thing, where they're kind of it's like kind of Austin Brett from '97. The fans have taken the Swerve. Page is supposed to be the babyface, but he's not. And the commentators, if you noticed, when Page tapped out to Samoa Joe in the choke, they were basically implying that Page purposely tapped out because he didn't want he wanted Samoa Joe to win the match as opposed to Swerve. So Hangman Page, he said, well, if you're going to choke me anyway, if I tap out, then you keep the title, Joe, and Swerve doesn't get it. I thought that was pretty interesting. And I do like this concept of two guys who are both kind of coming up the ladder, and they both don't want that world title. Page has already had it once, but it's more, what they're saying is it's more important for Hangman Page to see Swerve Strickland not to succeed than for him to succeed himself. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought that was pretty well thought out. For all the Eric Bischoffs and all the other people who say that AEW doesn't have storylines or that they're nonsensical, I would say I'm not so sure about that. I think they might be different. I mean, they're different than WWE stories, but the story here is that Hangman Page will sacrifice his own success as long as Swerve does not get the title. Now, that's a little contrived, but that's what it was. Personal issues draw money, and Swerve and Hangman have a personal issue. And exactly. And they've been doing quite well with it. They gave it a B+ for the match, a D for the finish. Let's see. I'm just looking at the Bleacher Report. He gives the whole thing a C+. Whoever wrote this thing, good for him. I like looking up the results on these things so I don't have to scroll them all down. By the way, folks, and Jimmy, I'll show you this. If you haven't seen these, I made these cute little videos of my NXT experience last night. Let's see if I can dig one of these things up. Um, Always experimenting. So check this out. This is only a minute long, but these are some photos from last night's NXT house show. Let's check this out. Okay, so that's a little bit of photographs from last night's show, and maybe at the end of this, I'll show the other two. I've got more to make with those, but my buddy Tori Caramadre provided me with some more music to make those, and those photographs I took not last night, but Saturday night, because now it's Monday morning. Okay, so let's get to our final match here, Jimmy. This was the main event. What we all came here for. It's funny because as I was talking, I kind of forgot the whole thing here, folks. Was the Sting, Darby Allin, Young Bucks match. And when I watched this match, what it made me think is there was some criticism, I guess, from Bischoff, if nobody else, with the Young Bucks. Why are the Young Bucks in this match? What's the purpose of this match? Bischoff was really tearing into it. I feel, having watched what they showed tonight, that a way to have enhanced this would be if they had announced Sting's retirement and they're doing like a bunch of interviews with people close to Sting, and they have Sting's two sons, in a studio environment. They're just wearing their jackets. They're just looking like regular guys, and they're in a studio and Sting's not even there. And like they're basically saying that they're going to do a surprise video tribute, and they have, Shivani, or Shivani would be fine, interviewing the two sons of Sting. And they're talking to them and they're saying how great their dad is and blah, blah, blah. And then the Young Bucks come out, and the Young Bucks start riding these kids, and your father's a chump and your father's an old piece of garbage. And you two guys never did anything like your father did. Your wastes of life, your father should have, had you come out on the ceiling instead of into your mom, all types of things. And then they beat the shit out of them. The Young Bucks beat the shit out of Sting's sons. And then they say, okay, Sting, and they're taking the son's head, like their bloody heads of the sons, and they're showing to him the camera and say, this is why you've got to wrestle us in your last match, Sting. We want that last match. We're not going to wrestle you until Revolution. Instead of, to me, it was a little more contrived that they were pushing that we're the EVPs and then we're going to beat up Sting and Darby. I think a way to kind of not be on such a point on that would have been to beat up the sons. And then if we got to where we got to tonight and the sons come out in the, American flag Sting and then the Wolfpack Sting, it would have meant so much more. If instead of just the sons being periphery figures in all this madness, if they were the focal point, if they had been insulted, you guys were never wrestlers. You didn't have the balls that your old man had. Your dad just became a wrestler because he wanted to go out on the road to be with all the tramps and all the rats and leave your poor mother at home. And she was probably with the mailman, something like that. This match would have had a lot more to it than just, we're the EVPs. We do what we want. We want this match, blah, blah, blah. That being said, I thought it was still good. It was still emotional. The match was better than I thought. I thought it would be something like this. I thought it would be a wild brawl and Sting would win. And I did think going into it that at least the Bucks are going to fly around for Sting, at least of all the people in the roster. And everybody's been really good to Sting in this AEW run. I guess he's undefeated, right? Him and Darby and all these tag team matches and 6-man tags and other matches have been undefeated. Did Sting ever have one singles match in AEW? I'm trying to think if he ever just had one, but I can't really recall. But in all these crazy matches that Sting has been in AEW, the Young Bucks are the ones that can fly for him, and I think it's a good thing for the Bucks too. You know, I mean, I'm not the biggest Young Bucks fan, but begrudgingly give them their respect. And if I was 10 or 20 years younger, I probably would be a Young Bucks fan, but I'm not, so I'm not. But in any event, I thought this match was better than I thought it would be. The glass stuff, I mean, it adds some drama. I mean, I think in a guy like Darby Allin's mind, if he doesn't personally sacrifice his body every single time out there and bleed and get all scarred up, he doesn't feel like he's doing his job. And look, I guess we need people like that in pro wrestling, or we accept it. You know, some of these guys are a little bit nuts. And I mean, if you look at Abdullah the Butcher and all these other guys, New Jack, you just have to have like a certain element of nuttier than a fruitcake wrestlers. Mick Foley, I mean, he took a bunch of serious abuse to his body, and Darby Allin's kind of in that. And is that the only thing that Darby can do to entertain us? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think that he needed to go through glass, on the floor. I mean, it looked pretty dangerous to me. I mean, how much padding did they have for him to do that? I don't know, but it looked pretty vicious. So I don't want to harp on it, but I guess my point is, if I'm thinking about the Darby Allin spot and the condition of this guy's back more than I'm thinking about his tag team partner who's just retired after a 40-year career, maybe there's something wrong with that. And I think that, Darby maybe can tone it down, but he probably won't. So it's like at some point you just accept these wrestlers for who they are, or you don't. That being said, I thought the match was better than it had a right to be. I think one thing that AEW creatively, because, one thing that AEW is not the best at is having non-title storylines. That's one of the reasons it seems they have so many titles, is because they're not the best at having storylines that don't involve a championship. And I think that that's for both major companies at this point, and that's why I saw somebody pushing for WWE to have a women's intercontinental title on Facebook. And I chimed in with my, if everyone is a champion, no one is the champion line on that, because can't you just have a couple of women have a storyline, like just a feud about something besides a title? And I just feel like, it'll be interesting because now creative for AEW just has a nice big crutch. They can do a tag team tournament for 2 months, or this Dynasty pay-per-view that I think was announced for, was it April 21st, Lou? We can just sit around and we can wait for this tag team title tournament finals. I mean, can I book that now, that the AEW tag team title tournament finals will be at the next pay-per-view Dynasty? And my point is just, AEW could use a person like me or many other people that can write storylines that do not have to rely on the crutch of a championship. That's all I'm saying. Not my thing, but if you're going to do a thing like that, then this is the moment worthy of it. This is the size of the moment worthy of it. And I believe Lou is referring to the stunts that Darby Allin did, the bleeding. Well, let's put it this way, not to be a Debbie Downer, but just to explore this a little bit. Maybe it is a Debbie Downer. Let's say Darby really got hurt. Let's say he couldn't walk, because I'm telling you, that flip through whether the glass was obviously, it looked like, some type of glass. Maybe it wasn't shards. It didn't kill him. But if he couldn't walk and he couldn't finish the match, then we'd all be feeling pretty shitty right about now. You know what I mean? Thanks, brother. I appreciate that, Lou. And as we know, I did have a job interview for the WWE. I've been on the phone with Terry Taylor going way back when for TNA. So, it is frustrating. The only thing we can do is just buy my books. If you saw the beginning, Lou, I'm actually in the middle of rewriting one of my novels, which I've been up for many hours. My sleep schedule is way off. So right now I'm actually feeling like I feel like midday, because I was up till 8 a.m. last night. I slept till 1:45 in the afternoon. My entire sleep schedule is bizarre because I find myself doing things at different hours than most people. But in any event, yeah, you're right. It is a seize the moment. If you're going to flip through a fucking giant ladder and go through a piece of glass and through a couple of chairs at ringside, then tonight was the night. So I appreciate that. My buddy there, AJ Morris, Michael AJ, was asking me my feelings on The Rock and the promo the other night. I did see it, believe it or not. I actually happened to be home on Friday night. I tuned it in. I thought that my TV was having trouble because I'm watching this show with an antenna, believe it or not. And yeah, I think you believe it. But it's interesting to me. They are going to do this Rock, wrestling the first night. So I guess it's Rock and Roman, which is a cool tag team. I mean, that's a powerful tag team against Seth and Cody. I mean, this is an interesting thing. I mean, I can say this. I don't think we've had in the history of these WWE 2-night WrestleManias, which I believe we're on our 4th year now, right? Have we ever had any wrestler wrestle on both nights? The first one was in the TV taped thing because of the pandemic, and Drew McIntyre wrestled the second night, and then he wrestled a bonus match against the Big Show. But have we ever had like Sasha Banks or anyone wrestle on one night and then the next night of WrestleMania? And I don't think we have. So this year, we're going to have 2 guys. So the only thing that could really go wrong, I mean, there's a lot of things that could go wrong, but I think we can fairly say that first night's match, they're not going to be jumping off ladders at ringside, going through a piece of glass, because if Cody and Roman, if either one of those guys gets injured and cannot compete the second night, then you screwed everything up. So I think they're going to have a pretty basic tag team match. In other words, it can be a good match. It can be a solid match. If anyone's going to take any crazy bump, you've got to think that it's going to be Seth Rollins, but he's probably up for it. And I think it's really interesting. I was kind of hoping that they would figure out a way to just have a singles match between Seth Rollins and The Rock. I mean, imagine the push for Seth Rollins. He's already a world champion. Once again, not the world champion. But if Seth Rollins actually got a one-on-one with the great one, with The Rock, even if he lost or however they did it, that would be big for Seth. But I kind of feel like Seth Rollins is the Paul Orndorff in this tag team match on the first night, because in a lot of ways he is the best wrestler of the 4. But just like Paul Orndorff, he's probably got the lowest profile going into it. But I think it's a great opportunity for him. Maybe there's a way they can squeeze Becky Lynch into this story somehow. Her husband's wrestling. They have acknowledged that Seth and Becky are husband and wife. I think when they tried to make them a babyface couple, 4 or 5 years ago, it fell flat. People didn't want to see, the man and her husband, in mixed tag team matches and storylines. It really stunk up the joint. But I think, it could be interesting. Can you imagine if you can somehow get Becky on the mic with The Rock? Could be really good stuff. It could be really good if they could, The Rock just has to throw one insult towards Seth that crosses the line, and suddenly you've got a situation with The Rock and Becky Lynch on the mic against each other. That could be fun. Here my buddy is, Michael AJ Morris. Yo, Mikey, WWE has gone soft, censored the Rocky Die Rocky sign, made TV go black. Well, I was just saying that happened to me. I wasn't sure what was going on, but is that really the WWE's fault, or is that the network? I mean, if you're on network TV and the network's, making that call, at least the WWE is doing that. And some of the stuff The Rock's been doing, I think you showed me the Dave LaGreca stuff where The Rock is cutting some pretty good promos, and he's I think it's good. I mean, and I think it's not the WWE necessarily. I mean, they've been soft. I mean, the stuff, guys, I'm telling you, and you've probably done this. If you've tried to watch some WWE programming from the PG era, like 2010 or even 2012, 2015, some of it is really hard to watch. And especially when you had like these, Breaking Point pay-per-views, or the Proving Ground pay-per-views, or what was that 7-on-7 pay-per-view match they had for a couple of years? The 7 Raw guys against the 7 SmackDown guys. There was some really tough years. And the stuff does not hold up particularly well. Like I like to go back and watch old wrestling, and the stuff A lot of those pay-per-views I missed at the time. I try to watch them now. They're really unbearable. You know, Alberto Del Rio and the fucking guy with the car and the long ass ring announcement and Sheamus. Some of this stuff sucks. It's really putrid and it's boring. And you know, my point is if The Rock is jazzing things up a little bit, I like that. You know, I'm the type of person, the type of wrestling fan. I like to see how different eras kind of come and go. The thing about wrestling is because it's a year-round cycle, you can never just say, well, in 2001, this was the thing, and then in 2002, it was different because the years just blend into each other. But if you look at, you know, The Rock, what he's doing now compared to 10, 15 years ago, it's a lot better now. So, I mean, and I will say that I will give the WWE a lot of credit. The stuff they're doing now is quite good. Let me show you guys another one of these little videos I took last night. I do have an NXT house show wrap up, but let me show you another little video presentation here, guys. Oh. Okay, thanks for watching that, guys. I was had a little sip of my water. Um, Gunther is great heel and good champion. Sad when he gets beat, and that run he deserves. And yeah, you know, Gunther has had a great run. I mean, I would have liked to have seen more of the Gunther Sheamus. I think they had the one match, the Clash of the Castle. That was speaking of Sheamus, that was probably the best match I've ever seen with Sheamus. And some of the tag team matches at same Sheamus and Cesaro against Nicholas and Braun Strowman. That was a 5-star. Couldn't even get through the sentence. But Cesaro and Sheamus, who did they wrestle on a pay-per-view that was really quite good? It wasn't Enzo and Cass, but it was Cesaro and Sheamus. It wasn't the New Day. It was like a couple of guys that were like actual real wrestlers, but they were good, man. I mean, Cesaro and Sheamus, that was a really good team. They had good matches against each other. And Sheamus, you know, just a year and a half or 2 years ago, the Clash of the Castle, that's a really good modern match against Gunther. And, you know, Gunther is one of these guys who came up in NXT. I wasn't really watching a whole lot of NXT at the time that Gunther was dominant there, but I have to give it up. He is very good. I kind of like the Walter name better. It didn't have the World War II ramifications because the Gunther name that he took on was an homage to some type of, you know, person that we wouldn't want to homage to in my book. But Gunther is quite good. So people are really digging his Intercontinental title reign. It seemed like him and Seth Rollins were headed to something. Are they going to do Seth Rollins versus Gunther on the second night of the show of WrestleMania? I don't know. I mean, I do think this is interesting. If they've opened up the floodgate that some wrestlers can wrestle at both nights of WrestleMania, and you can kind of build the story, it makes sense. They did that a little bit 2 years ago. Steve Austin and Kevin Owens, the main event of night one, like the spontaneous main event of night one. I got to watch that again. That was a great one night. And then the next night you had like Vince and Pat McAfee and Austin came out. So AJ is saying, I love the Drew heel turn. I think he signed a new deal. That's what I heard as well. He's doing his best stuff. Smart. Give him the Broken Dream theme. Okay, so is Drew McIntyre going to wrestle Seth Rollins at night 2? So in this case, you could do a situation like this, guys. You could have Drew McIntyre come out, attack Seth in the tag team match, bonk him against a ring post. Cody, takes the pin, and then they do the Bloodline rules at WrestleMania. And you could say, okay, even though we're doing Bloodline rules, The Rock and Solo and the other Uso, they all agree we're going to let Roman do his business, even though we don't have to. And then you could do a thing where Cody's about to beat Roman, and lo and behold, CM Punk comes out and causes Cody the title, which I kind of think is going to happen. I think that if I were going to predict a big surprise for WrestleMania Night 2, it would be that CM Punk is going to cost Cody Rhodes the championship. And right around that time, Cody Rhodes will be, if he's not going to win the title, which I could go either way, but if they want to keep that title on Roman to beat Bruno's record, like I predicted months ago, then you have CM Punk interfere, and then you have a personal issue, CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, and that gives Cody something to do if they're never going to give him this fucking title. I rather get excited about modern wrestlers. Gunther's the exceptions. Reminds me of Big Thunder Gene Kiniski. I think that's who you're talking about. Not Gene Kunis. Big Thunder. That was Gene Kiniski from Canada, who was an NWA World Champion. I was actually just watching Kelly Kiniski, one of his sons. He had two sons, Nick Kiniski and Kelly Kiniski. I think it was Kelly. I just watched a New Shoot interview from 2024, and he was basically talking about his time in the WWE, which was very abridged. He was only there for a couple of months in 1986, and he was basically talking about the sexual harassment stuff with the wrestlers and the higher-ups. So that was Kiniski's son. Yes, Gene Kiniski is who we're talking about. Gene Kiniski, I never really got the opportunity to see a lot of his matches. I can say this. I'm pretty sure I'm thinking of the same guy. Was it Gene Kiniski who was the referee for the Ric Flair Harley Race steel cage match at Starrcade 83, Lou? Because I'm pretty sure that it was Gene Kiniski, and it looked like to me he wanted to be in the match. Like he thought it was a 3-man match because Kiniski is pulling Harley Race's hair. He's way too physical in that match, especially for a cage match. Big. No offense to Gene Kiniski, but his refereeing at Starrcade 83 was atrocious. Bayley losing at WrestleMania to Io. I see Dakota turning on Damage Control, causing Bayley. Smart, she's been around in WWE for a while. That's why Dakota turned early before Mania to fool Damage Control. Interesting. So you're basically seeing like Dakota Kai kind of becoming the featured point. You think Bayley's going to lose, but then Dakota's going to turn babyface. I kind of like the whole Damage Control the way it was. Some of these things, it reminds me of 2 or 3 years ago, the Bobby Lashley group, the Hurt Business. They were barely together. People were getting into them, and then they broke them apart. And I kind of feel like Damage Control is the new Hurt Business. I mean, I think when you have a contingent, and I don't know what it is with WWE, but they've done that a lot. I mean, go back to the DX, like the Road Dogg, Billy Gunn era of DX. If you really look at the timeline, that group, Billy Gunn, China, Road Dogg, Triple H, and X-Pac, they were not together very long before they broke them up. Like that 4 plus China, the 4 guys in China, that 5-person DX, which was like the babyface DX, the crowd interactions DX, Suck It, and all that crap. They weren't together that long initially, and then they fucked it all up. And I feel like Damage Control, I think once again, instead of it always just having to be the women have to fight for a title, think of something else for these women to do, because I think they could have pushed Damage Control to the heights that the Bloodline was in, and I just don't think they did. And just it to me, guys, it's really becoming a crutch, a creative crutch. Person turns against the faction. You know what I mean? We've got to do better than that. Yes, it was Gene Kiniski. Oh, interesting. Saw Kiniski versus Flair around that same time in St. Louis. That's interesting because Kiniski must have. I mean, people look older back then now, didn't they? Like, I'm not sure how old he was in '83, but I'm maybe 55. But I mean, he looked pretty old. So that must have been fun. He was stiff as hell with Flair. I mean, it did feel like Gene Kiniski, still wanted to be the main event wrestler, not the referee. What are your thoughts on Drew and Charlie and Damon keep team in NXT? I'm trying to even think of who you're talking about, buddy. Because I just went to the NXT show last night, but I'm trying to think of, you talk about Drew. It's not Drew McIntyre and Charlie. Oh, you're talking about the Judgment Day? I'm not even sure what you're asking me, buddy. Yeah, because here's the thing, man. I know it's kind of weird. I don't watch the NXT TV program. I go to the house shows. I know that's bizarre. I go to these NXT house shows. I don't know who the fuck I'm watching. I kind of have like my own, like, okay, here's the hot, cowgirl chick. Here's the girl with the purse. Like, that's my interpretation of NXT. When I go see the NXT, I try to make this little time machine where I'm seeing like this little regional territory in 1982 Florida, some mud outlaw show that Eddie Graham is not happy with, right? So I don't know the real wrestlers' names in NXT, but I take the fucking pictures, so I don't know. He's pushing 60 at least. That's Kiniski against Flair at 83. I try to answer your question, buddy. I just don't know what the question is. Drew and Charlie and Damon Kemp team in NXT. I'm not sure. Is that the country and western guys? Is that like there's a guy in NXT who's like kind of a country hillbilly type? Like, is that him? Like he's kind of like the Silos guy from NWA. He's kind of like a good old boy, whatever the fuck. Chase University. I finally got their names right. Chase University. I actually like. I like the leader of Chase University. I think he's fun. I don't like this camera angle, by the way. But I do like the Chase University guy. But yeah, man, if you want to explain that, type up the answer. I'm going to show you one more little clip here, folks. Once again, this is from my experience last night. There's only one more. I want to take a sip of water and just show you guys this for just a minute, and it'll all be fun. Okay, the Heel Varsity Club. I'm thinking of Chase University, so I don't think that's what you're telling me, though. I don't know, man. I went to the NXT house show last night. They don't really try to make it about the storyline so much. It's more just about the wrestling. Last night was actually quite good. They had 10 matches on the show in Jacksonville. If anyone's out there in Florida, I mean, these NXT shows are actually quite fun. I don't think they'd be worth flying into. But if you happen to be in, Georgia or Florida or Alabama, probably worth the drive. The tickets are super cheap. They're $20 for a reserve seat and 10 general admission. And like I said, part of the fun of going to those shows is just seeing the families, seeing that a next crop of young wrestling fans is and being brought up. So we got about 5 minutes, guys. If you have any other further comments or questions, I try to answer your Rock questions. Yes, the Rock doing his promo. I mean, I looked up The Rock and Roman Reigns were pretty entertaining, with the acknowledge me and I have to ask you a favor and all that stuff. And 40 minutes they were on the air. And then apparently some folks are getting upset in Twitter world. I mean, the Israeli Gaza Palestine stuff doesn't upset them, but the fact that Naomi, got jobbed out basically. Was it Tiffany Stratton? She fell victim to a moonsault or a reverse moonsault. and didn't get the proper ring introduction. And apparently their match was supposed to be 13 minutes long. Somehow we know this, someone has the inside scoop to tell us that the ladies match that followed The Rock and Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman got reduced by 10 minutes. And this young lady, Naomi, who's been around, she's actually, in the bloodline as well by marriage, but she lost pretty unceremoniously. And I get it. For wrestling fans, they're very, very possessive and very defensive about their top wrestlers and how they're portrayed and how they win or lose. I mean, I'll tell you this, folks. We as wrestling fans often care more than the wrestlers do themselves. They're actually getting paid to do this stuff. You would think that they would care more than they do, but often we care more than they do. And I'm not sure if Naomi stayed up at night. She might have been a little disappointed. She might have been pissed. Because her stock might have been lowered. And does the WWE owe her anything? I mean, it's interesting that she and Sasha Banks left at the same time, and they were tag team champions together. But for whatever reason, Naomi just wasn't the bigger name. And if you look down and analyze it, you could just say that Naomi hasn't been featured as much. Is she as good as Sasha Banks? I mean, who's to say? I mean, has she had the opportunity to wrestle a 30-minute match on an NXT pay-per-view like Sasha did? Did they entrust her to do that? I still remember Naomi winning a WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal where she was supposed to get a title shot. She still hasn't gotten the fucking title shot. So that was 5 or 6 years ago. AJ's been watching TNA. That makes one of us, buddy. TNA's been getting good and entertaining. Mustafa Ali doing heel Trump X Division character is good. I would watch that. I'd be curious to see how he's doing. And Dana new character is good. I have heard that Dana Brooke is kind of doing her own, kind of shadow version of Tony Storm. And I think this is where we just get into time factors, guys. How much time can me, you, or anybody give to wrestling? I still like watching old stuff, so I mean, and I like watching documentaries. I like watching certain podcasts I listen to, and I'm making my own shit all the time. I've been watching 90 Day Fiance. That's become a new thing for me. I can't explain it, but the show is just very entertaining to me. It's like a nice human car crash. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess what I say it makes one of us. I kind of gave up on TNA, and I still have. And, they seem very start and stop. And so I just have to protect myself. I don't want to get emotionally invested into TNA because inevitably they fuck it up. You know what I mean? I mean, they just got rid of Scotty D'Amore. But beyond that, I don't know. TNA, I just been burned by them too many times. Having the title go around Tessa Blanchard, she's beating Brian Cage. She's beating Sammy Califuck. I just can't sit around and watch that. And I just think TNA, what it's become is not what it was. And, back when it was, in my opinion, from the beginning of it, 2002, really my years for TNA were more like 2004 to 2008. I thought those were the best years for TNA, maybe 2010, pre-Hogan. But when you had Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe, the Motor City Machine Guns, I think the Dudleys did some of their best work in TNA. I think the Dudleys might have done better work in TNA than they did in WWE or close to it. But I mean, Bully Ray was quite good. Sting. I mean, I was kind of hoping we'd see the Joker Sting tonight because I think Sting had a great thing. Impact or TNA Wrestling had some great action figures for a while. At one point, they had the Marvel action figures. Marvel was doing the TNA figures. Those were awesome figures. The Bobby Roode and not him, but AJ Styles had a nice figure. Raven had a really cool TNA figure. I got to wrap this up in a minute. Joe Gacy is good. Yeah, I just showed a Joe Gacy video, buddy, that I took. So you just saw that. Bray Wyatt, successor, and Dax Jax is Batista, makes Boss Man. He's good. Their feud is good. Yeah, I just showed a nice video of Joe Gacy. Do you feel Samoa Joe will get Roman treatment in AEW? No, I don't think so. I think I would predict by the end of the calendar year, I would think that either they get MJF to come back. I don't think Samoa Joe will have the title. I don't think he'll have it at the end of this year, to be honest with you. I think they will make a trade, but I think he'll have a nice 6 or 8 month title reign. And whether it's MJF getting it back, or maybe Bryan Danielson or Swerve, as our buddy Jimmy predicted, I think we'll be seeing some of that. Hey guys, I'm going to wrap this up because I can replay this video as long as I keep it under 59 minutes and 50 seconds. So we're pulling up on that. MikeMessier.com. Subscribe to the channel. Share the URL, gentlemen, if you don't mind. And thanks for tuning in. Lou, Jimmy, and AJ, and anyone else that watched. We'll see you next time. I think Kyle O'Reilly just got where he was. He can't quit yet, buddy. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.